Hello and welcome back. We are here for the grand finals of Ascent Boston 2025. Here joined on the TriCast, we have Main Deck Dan.
Hey, everyone.
True Champ Isaac.
Hey, I'm in the back here. This is fun.
Yeah, and I am Once in Love. Not your host this time. I'm here as a caster. So we're going to bring you guys the final game here between the godfather of the pony toss deck, Picklesword, versus the hero Lorraine deck, the anti-Vanitas deck, BobbyTortilla.
BobbyTortilla, the people's champion right now for a lot of the players at home who are waiting to see what can actually take down this Fire Vanitas deck. But then we have all the other players who are watching this Fire Vanitas going, yeah, I want to beat these level 3 decks. The Rile's too strong. It runs Rile itself, but you got to fight fire with fire, don't you, Isaac?
And I think that's exactly the issue here that I think some people have, but also some people are okay with is, yeah, we have to use Rile because those Rile decks are getting value, so let's get value ourselves. That way we can beat them down, in this case, beat them down with level 3 Vanitas and beat them down with horses.
On the other side, beating them down with multiple swords, beating them down with fluffy shopkeeps.
Yes.
We are slamming the fluffy shopkeep on the field. Swords go into banishment. We are now stronger. We're empowered.
Fluffy Shopkeep has just been a crazy card. Both these decks, of course, playing it. Like we said, 6 out of the top 8 decks playing this Fluffy Shopkeep today. But it's going to be an insanely intense battle as we try to see if BobbyTortilla can go ahead and repeat this defeat that he did on Picklesword's previous teammate, but this time on the deck creator. So let's take another look. Isaac, why don't you go over, for everyone at home, the results of the semifinals and where we're headed with this grand finals again?
Yeah, and obviously on stream we saw BobbyTortilla take it down, taking down specifically Cage Business on that Vanitas deck here. And now in the bronze match, we have Ver versus Cage Business. Now, both those decks, it's another mirror match there, so I'm pretty sure that match is going to go a little quicker than our grand finals here. But yeah, Picklesword taking down Ver in that mirror match 2-0 pretty handedly. Obviously, they have that choice to pick if they want to go first or second because they are higher seed, and so I'm sure that comes into play when dealing with the mirror here. And then something else, obviously, as we're moving on here to the grand finals, we have Picklesword versus BobbyTortilla. I mean, this is great. You were talking about it earlier, Dan, that we want to see the underdog of the tournament in a way, underdog of at least this bracket when it comes to all these Fire Vanitas deck, and see that deck maybe hopefully take it down for some people, but other people's hoping that Vanitas takes it down. That way they don't have to worry or have at least a counter to this Rile deck.
Yeah, this has been, I think, just one of the most exciting ways that the event possibly could have ended. Honestly, it's crazy. It feels like it was pre-written to have the deck's originator be the one that makes it all the way to the finals, but not in this mirror match that I think everybody expected to see.
Yeah. I mean, this is exactly what Pickle wanted, right? This is exactly what the chess club team wanted, was a level 3 deck that they could beat. And this is honestly, even though Bobby played really well, this is probably the best matchup that Picklesword could be thinking of that they would like to be versing here in the finals.
Yeah, it's tough too because they look at it and Picklesword has expressed himself that Cleave is the real big downside to this deck, right? A lot of people are looking at this Vanitas deck like, oh, there's no way to beat it. It's too strong. It's oppressive. But Cleave does a really good job on it, right? Being able to remove allies from the board. This deck doesn't have a real big influence restructure. It's not able to regain influence the same way that other advanced element decks are. Like when we look at Crux, Ghost of Pendragon, right? Luxem, Banish a Gleaming Cut. We have even Umbra now. We have options with things like playing multiple Umbra sites. We just have different ways to accrue value over time. Whereas with this Vanitas deck, it doesn't really feel like you can accrue value. You have to just maintain the value you've created for yourself at the beginning there. So, Dan, what do you think about this match? I know we've talked about it a lot. We've seen a lot of the matches. Knowing that Picklesword is higher seed, do you think he's going to take first or second? Yeah,
the higher seed is the element that really is going to, I think, shape how this match plays out. We've talked about this several times, but here we have BobbyTortilla, who's in great spirits, our player who is playing Lorraine, right? And Lorraine is the champion that is actually hurt the most by Vanitas getting that early taxation punch on her, because if she gets hit with that punch while she's level 0, when she tries to go to 1, she has to pay an extra for the materialization to 1 and an extra for the materialization of the sword. It can be a pretty devastating hit to try to take. But at the same time, we did see in the last match where BobbyTortilla faced one of Picklesword's teammates, took them down on the draw as well, right? It wasn't even enough to get on the play. It depended on how defensive, and I think Bobby said in the interview, those first 2 turns, those are the most crucial.
Yeah, definitely. And like you're saying, Bobby recognizing that he needs to put down some kind of interceptor, some kind of taunter. That way they are, blocking at least one of those attacks from Vanitas here. And we're going to get right into the match. And hopefully we see those. I'm sure Bobby's looking for those fluffy shopkeepers, those stalwart shield mates to block at least a attack from Picklesword here. And maybe a Resolute on top of that to maybe keep that ally alive for multiple turns.
Picklesword, not the greatest of openers, doesn't have the Rile the Abyss or the Creative Shock, but does have the double dungeon guide available to him. It's not the most ideal, but Fluffy Shopkeep is a good way to kind of start that influence. It is another card that allows you to go influence neutral, right? That's the big play that we're looking for on the Vanitas deck. First turn, whether it's neutral with Creative Shock or Rile the Abyss, he also has the ability to go neutral with the Fluffy Shopkeep here.
Yeah, I have to say the Vanitas deck really wants to see some action right away, is happy to try and get any sort of influence generation, but also at the same time, like you're saying, Tyler, doesn't need to, right? Just the key is going to be that turn 2 play, seeing cards like the Dungeon Guide. So Picklesword, like you said, not the greatest opener, but sees that D guide, right? Knows it's there, is going to still be able to execute. We have to see Bobby's hand to know how defensive he's going to be able to play and what Picklesword needs to play through.
Yeah, and something that's interesting here, with that Fluffy Shopkeep, you can see Picklesword hesitating on that smoke bombs, wondering, is this something I need to get rid of? He saw O'Cage Business's match with BobbyTortilla. He saw how important it was to get through those taunters and interceptors. So really trying to figure out, do I need to keep the smoke bomb? He does end up getting rid of it, but that could be a very crucial card here going forward that is no longer an option for Picklesword.
Okay, looking at Bobby's hand, we do see a Creative Shock. We see Dungeon Guide as well. Once, what are you thinking?
It looks like he's got a pretty standard opener. I do like that he has the option between the Creative Shock and the Rile the Abyss, plus the Fluffy Shock.
I missed the Shopkeep. That's good. This is what we're saying, right? Tortilla needs to be defensive, and he's got the Shopkeep to help kind of defend. Now, the Resolute Stand is the card we want to see with that, right? That'll guarantee no taxes that he has to deal with.
Yeah, a lot of strong protection there. Something worth mentioning in BobbyTortilla's deck, and we didn't really talk about it in the other games, is he's maining 4 Reduced to Ash. That is a very heads-up play, knowing that Sensor is going to be super relevant towards his impacted game plan.
Yeah, and something with BobbyTortilla's hand, he does actually have that Undying Dreams. We can actually use that on the Fluffy Shopkeep, keep it alive, and we get to use that on our Fluffy Shopkeep to keep it alive. And unfortunately for Bobby, even if he uses the Undying Dreams to keep it alive, it can still die to the Fluffy Shopkeep attack and an attack from one of those horses, which I believe we saw in Picklesword's hand. He had a Dialu that he can use.
So the Shopkeeps just staring each other down on the middle of the field here. The menacing hero, actually, maybe not so menacing, the fearful, heroic impasse that you have to go through for the Fluffy Shopkeep. We're going to see the Dungeon Guide to level 2, so Vanitas Convergent Ruin coming out. We're going to look to get that 2-drop. I believe it is the Dilu for this time. It's going to be getting Picklesword up to level 3.
Yeah, we're looking at clearly a line here to take this Shopkeep down. The attack from the Dilu will clear the way even through this Undying Dreams, which might get played, but it's not going to be enough because these can all come in to deal with it, which is going to mean this taxation is going to happen right here. That's what BobbyTortilla is most afraid of having to deal with. Wishes that if that opener again were Resolute Stand, you play the Resolute Stand on the Fluffy Shopkeep, and suddenly there's no chance it can die this turn, but we're not going to get that.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. In BobbyTortilla's hand, we actually saw in memory a Cremation Ritual. And going second, he would have had the option to actually Cremation Ritual this Fluffy Shopkeep, and he could have had the idea of maybe keeping it alive, or sorry, using that Cremation Ritual on the Fluffy Shopkeep instead of keeping it alive, because he saw that Picklesword has his own Shopkeep, right? And so thinking, all right, if he has that Shopkeep, all he's going to need is one of those horses, and it's going to kill off even through this Undying Dream. So we're kind of at an awkward point here. And yep, Bobby recognizing, hey, I'm not going to use that Undying Dreams. Instead, I'm just going to let this Fluffy Shopkeep die, and then I'm going to have to figure out another route here for me.
Yeah, so he had the option to do a lot of things with that turn, right? We talked about the Cremation Ritual, but the Creative Shock and the Rile the Abyss were both available in hand. We know he has the Undying Dreams. If he had played the Rile the Abyss, he could have drawn a card, discarded the Undying Dreams. If he got another card off, that could have +1 from a Liminal Guide or something else. It would have allowed him to play both of these things in the same turn. Definitely would have been hands down, so would not have been able to bluff the Resolute stand. But I don't think Picklesword is worried about the bluffs. He's going to face check everything, right, Dan?
Yeah, 100%. Picklesword knows exactly what the issues are, and he's going to make sure that Bobby has them, and if he doesn't, he's going to get that advantage. And right now, we did see the hit from the Vanitas coming in, which means that this material deck is all going to be +1 to materialize. And what we saw in the previous game, actually, the very last game, the second game against Burner, BobbyTortilla, when he got hit by that, just skipped materialize on turn 2. Absolutely crazy. But
yeah, and that's the foresight from Tortilla. Like, understanding the matchup, I mean, he understands it really, really well. He got to play it in day 1 a little bit. He got to play it mainly in day 2, and he's talking about how this, this deck that he had no clue was going to be here. He's starting to learn it, and we saw how well he learned it last match here with Burner. But in this match, he's definitely going to be trying to figure out what he wants to do. It is going to be that Lorraine materialization.
Wow.
And this is really hard. This is so much influence to lose here.
It's a really, really tough one. So like we talked about, Vanitas Dominus Rex does, on champion hit, increase the materialization cost by 1. And so it's going to be 1 materialization from extra for Lorraine and 1 for the Sword of Seeking. So he's actually going to go -2 more than normal. He loses the Rile the Abyss. He does get the Sword of Seeking, which allows him to have a weapon available. But I don't think he has a Flame Sweep. So he's not going to be able to clear border this turn.
this is crazy. Going to level 1, losing 3 cards to do so. I wondered if Bobby was just going to decline to find a materialize for a weapon just to keep the extra card in hand. It's very interesting to see that happen.
Yeah, and one of those things, I mean, we see, luckily, Bobby gets a Stalwart Shieldmate in the graveyard. So we have an influence we can use for the next, maybe materialization, unless that sensor comes out from Vanitas, which obviously is devastating here. And I don't see a Reduce to Ash in hand currently for Bobby. We have a Cremation Ritual, we have a Rile, we have a Creative Shock, and an Ensoul, but not the Reduce.
So interesting enough, Tortilla is going to Dungeon Guide up to level 2. He's going to Dungeon Guide up to Lorraine Blademaster. He will get that on-enter effect where Lorraine does get +2 power to her attacks this turn. On kill, draw a card. This is going to allow him to clear that D-Lu off the board. Dungeon Guide can swing in for 1 into the D-Lu and then swing with your champion and the Sword of Seeking. Do you guys feel like this is an effective play here, or is it kind of playing from the back foot? Dan, what do you think about that?
We're definitely on the back foot right now. This, to me, is a play. We saw those flame sweeps and how important it was to get that influence in the previous game. You really would prefer to be going Blademaster into flame sweep, but I think at this point, Bobby realizes, look, I am going second this game. Pickle had a great start. I had a medium start, and I just need to do whatever I can to try and climb into this game, get that life buffer, get some influence back, and now Bobby just needs to go ahead and say, well, I've got some shocks. I'm going to just try and dig and find, the D-Guide, some Ghosts of Pendragon, try and rebuild from here as long as I can live long enough. Yeah,
and one thing that was really crucial on this turn, we went to level 2, like we said. We killed off that Dilute, which was representing 3 damage every single turn on top of the Dominus Rex and on top of the Fluffy Shopkeep and the Dungeon Guide. But off that draw from the Dilute, we actually get another DG. So Bobby has a DG in hand, so he's able to skip his materialization next turn here, go to level 3, and hopefully finally, exactly what we were saying, that Pendragon, hopefully to gain that influence back and start putting pressure on board.
Yeah, in that case, the sensor is just actually not really going to do too much right now. Plenty of time. If Bobby does want to reduce it later and then use that to get out one of his other swords or something, that's great. But this is kind of the opening. It's going to be a little bit, those first 2 turns so crucial. He's going to be a little behind, but he has an opening at this point. Once, is it going to be enough?
I don't think it's going to be enough in this game. Picklesword has very effectively established the lock, right? We've talked about this kind of lock in different matches and different metas. Probably the most well-known one, the Taser lock from Diana in the ALC meta. But in this one, it is the Vanitas lock, which is a materialization lock. It is a form of taxation. It is really, really tough to get over that. So we're going to see the Grand Crusader's Ring. He's going to lose the card that was in his memory, but he's going to be able to draw and play the Creative Shock in his recollection. Dan, do you think this is going to be enough to kind of cycle back in and find the influence to push for game?
I think it's actually right now not about finding influence. It's actually about finding the key cards. Bobby has the Dungeon Guide, but the power of these advanced element decks is the advanced element cards, right? Bobby can DG up to Lorraine level 3, but now what he wants is those Ghosts of Pendragon. He wants to start to rebuild, and it's a limited time that Picklesword is giving him, so he needs to just cycle as much as possible right now. Dig, dig, dig.
Yeah, luckily for Bobby, he has a little bit of time to cycle, right? We have that clock of Vanitas, and we have those allies on board, but Picklesword at that low influence, we will be able to use a draw effect next turn, and as long as I don't quite see what's in Picklesword's hand here. I don't know if we've had a flash of it earlier, but if he doesn't find that Dilute, doesn't find that red hair, we're going to see a very slow game from Vanitas here.
We almost saw the flame sweep kept there, and that's that's very. It makes sense to keep that, right? Because there's just 1/3s on board, but very likely a horse coming down at some point. Bobby thinking, man, I really could use this flame sweep in hand to make sure I can deal with that. But that's so much influence. I think Bobby makes the right call here. Needs to hold on to the creative shock just to be able to dig.
Yeah, luckily for Bobby, we also have, we're kind of in the same state here, right? We have these 2 dungeon guides on board for Bobby. We have a fluffy shopkeep and a dungeon guide on board for Picklesword. And we have the swing from champion every single turn, at least for most turns here with Lorraine. And we're, in fact, in this case, we're going to use it to clear off that fluffy shopkeep, give us an opening for later on, and maybe find a Rending Flame so we can do a cheeky kill, right, with those fire cards in graveyard here.
Yeah, so we talked about it in other games, mainly with the Jin games, right? The Dungeon Guide to level 3, keep that 3rd card there in the memory for your Berserker's Blade on the next turn. I think BobbyTortilla might actually be going for that play this turn. He knows he's going to get locked by the Vanitas. So what he can do is he can materialize Clarent reimagined, and use the effect of that with the card in memory. So he has other ways to get around this.
Yeah, it's really, really strong here. I think Clarent might be the difference maker in this entire match. And we saw it in Cage Business's match with BobbyTortilla. I mean, here he can get that Clarent out. It will cost 1, but it's going to have 3 durability. And it's going to banish 2 different swords here to allow him to swing 3 turns in a row with his champion for 6 damage total.
Yeah, it's crazy just to show how impactful it is to have that 3 durability sword. And it's been so fun to see the rise of this Lorraine Crux Knight. This is the champion that was, for a long time, thought of to be the inferior Lorraine. But now with that addition of this 3 durability sword that you can get for 0 cost +1 when you're taxed, but 0 cost, it gives Bobby this ability to just kind of actually grind the game out in the same way we saw that CL deck with the Grand Sonore yesterday, just being able to say, well, I've got 3 attacks with this. I'm going to get there eventually.
Yeah, and we see Picklesword bring out the Beastful Visage. Now, because currently BobbyTortilla doesn't have a way to clear off this dungeon guide, this actually might survive a couple turns, push 3 damage. We see Picklesword just trying to close out the game, right? We didn't go for the draw effect. We don't have that horse in hand. We don't have the unique ally in hand to push more damage every single turn, or even the Wind Trotter. So instead, we're going to use the Beastful Visage to act like our own Wind Trotter, that we can put on board here and start pushing 3 every turn. But like we were talking about earlier, BobbyTortilla bringing out the Clarent, reimagined, allowing him to swing 3 turns in a row here, and maybe more going in the future. And hopefully, I'm sure we're going to set up for something like a Rending Flames if we can get enough influence.
This is a fascinating game of Grand Archive just because we get to see a deck that goes absolutely down to nothing on influence, trying to kind of play a Scorched Earth game against the opponent, say neither of us will have influence, but my game plan is better. But Bobby is fighting tooth and claw to be able to prove that he can still get through on a low influence game, despite Picklesword's turns being not full of much action.
Yeah, like you said, War of Attrition, it's a very long, drawn-out match, and that's not a good draw for Picklesword. He's going to get the Beseech the Winds. At this point in the game, Beseech the Winds is just a dead card. It doesn't activate anything relevant for you. You don't materialize anything that makes a significant impact. He's just going to be swinging in for that 3 every single turn. And with the Impact Hammer there, taking BobbyTortilla up to 21. He has 7 damage counters away from dying. Fractal Sparks enters the field, so this will represent 1 extra damage every single turn, because I believe BobbyTortilla has no way to deal with that.
Yeah, the Fractal Sparks is actually, I think, really big here, right? So we get the Impact Hammer on board, allowing Vanitas to swing for 5 on the next turn, which would be lethal, except for BobbyTortilla has that Resolute, but now we have that Fractal Spark. So now we can use it at Bobby's end step, put him to 22, go to our turn, put him to 23, swing with the Impact Hammer with our champion, put him to, obviously lethal even through that Resolute. So this Fractal Sparks actually going to be the card that probably ends up closing the game here.
Yeah, unfortunately, looking at Bobby's hand, we're just not seeing a lot of action showing up to be able to deal with that. He just goes for the attacks in with these dungeon guides and with the champion, saying, like, I'm just going to hope that you don't see the line or you don't have the line to be able to deal enough damage here. Bobby getting remarkably close to taking the game, being on the back foot. Still, honestly, like just missing a little bit of influence, but that's exactly the game plan that Picklesword's deck plays.
Yeah, and we're seeing here Picklesword's materialization, just wondering, Do I have lethal? What could BobbyTortilla actually have in hand? Should I be super safe? Bring out this Tariff Ring, actually, and make sure that even if I mess up my lethal turn here, I am guaranteed safe. And something we should point out, and something that this Fractal Sparks is actually not necessarily guaranteeing lethal, is that Clarence Sword reimagined here can actually stop the 1 damage coming in for Fractal Sparks, so we can't actually push guaranteed lethal, except for if we do that, if we make that Clarence reimagined be used. Now what is BobbyTortilla's win con after that?
So looking between the two decks, Picklesword is going to go for the Tariff Ring. Tariff Ring is very efficient here because it stops BobbyTortilla from having the option to use a Rending Flames. Even if he doesn't use the Resolute, if he does manage to find a way to live through this turn, not having access to Rending Flames to make the attack because you're unable to pay for the additional cost is going to keep Picklesword at, I guess, 1 step ahead in this war of attrition. So Dan, the Resolute Stand just comes out. Here it is, the alternate cost. It's going to stop the damage coming in from Vanitas. He's going to take 2 from the impact, or for 3 from the impact hammer, so 2 into BobbyTortilla. Will still get that on-champion hit effect, but not finding lethal anymore. Right?
Yeah, this is a very tight situation to be in. Bobby is forced to use this Resolute Stand just to survive and desperately wants to not have to use the Clarent Reimagine. Looking at the board, it's +5 damage right here, 1 damage from this, and then 2 from here. So we're looking at a total of just shy of the 10 damage required with the 8 damage. Well, actually, I'm sorry, but the 3 damage. Hang on, but the 3 damage from the Impact Hammer, the Tariff Ring is the thing that'll stand in the way, but Bobby's going to still have 2 cards in hand going into this turn, won't he?
Yeah, have 2 cards. Unfortunately, do not get the draw for turn, and so we can only swing with one thing. We can swing with 1 ally, we can swing with 1 champion.
Yep, that's it. The Tariff Ring is what saves him here. The +2 cost +2 to swing with everything this turn. So attacks with Dungeon Guide costs 2, attacks with your champion with your Clarent costs 2, and that's just not going to quite get there. I think Bobby needs to basically have draw another Resolute Stand this turn, but he doesn't get to draw.
He doesn't get to draw. We have to, Picklesword here, forcing him to use the Clarent Reimagined active ability and getting rid of that sword, which was BobbyTortilla's win con here. And now, as we just passed to Picklesword's turn, that Fractal is going to restand, and we can just ping the enemy champion for 1. And also, I guess on top of that, we have the Embercrypt Burn in hand this entire time to deal 2.
The Embercrypt Burn at the end of Bobby's turn, now that, we're safe from killing ourselves with it accidentally. We're able to not take the damage from the swing from Lorraine here, and that means that Picklesword just goes for the damage, 3 damage attack, and then Picklesword takes game 1 in our 3-game grand finals set. Vanitas up a game. BobbyTortilla, for some people, the people's champion, going into game 2, needs to pick up a win to go to game 3.
Yeah, and BobbyTortilla, I think we saw it in game 2 against Burner here, against, O'Cage Business on that Vanitas list. Trying to figure out what should you side in, right? You guys were talking about maybe bringing in the Annul spells, maybe bringing in that Crystallized Destiny, maybe also bringing in that another Resolute Stand. But at the end of the day, it's just going to be kind of hard for BobbyTortilla to come back out of this. Now, luckily, the crucial thing about game 2 here is that BobbyTortilla gets to go first, gets to choose to go first against this Vanitas list, which might be the all-deciding factor in this matchup.
So it looks like Picklesword's actually siding out the Verruckin Acolytes from his deck. Doesn't see the value in breaking that sort of seeking. I did have a quick chat with the other Chess Club members, and they mentioned Volda is never something you take out against the Resolute decks, right? Because Volda enables you to kill the Fluffy Shopkeep should they use the Resolute. It's just another counterplay option. But Verruckin Acolyte, while it does clear, it is a 3-drop instead of being a 2-cost. It does impact the way that the deck plays in its original play pattern on the first 3 turns.
It also is, of all your drops that you're trying to place the turn you're leveling, it's the most vulnerable, right? It's the one that even if there's a Fluffy Shopkeep in the way you're trying to get rid of, can just be killed on the Retaliate from the Shopkeep, which lowers a lot of your kind of pressure on that second turn. That next turn when we watch the Lorraine player, we watch BobbyTortilla say, okay, well, you did your level up turn, now I have to try and respond and stem the bleeding a little bit. And Verruckin it makes sense. That's a very sensible card to pull out.
Yeah, and like you're saying, it makes sense here. And one thing you did mention was that Fluffy Shopkeep. I think, again, we talked about this a lot. I mean, this matchup, last matchup, but it really is important. Seeing that fluffy shopkeep for BobbyTortilla, right? Seeing an early one, possibly a stalwart alongside it, would probably honestly mean game here for Bobby. I mean, just the first couple 2 turns, right? We were talking about that our line. So if Bobby can get that on turn 1, play it onto board, play a stalwart alongside it to keep it protected, or also just have more blockers in the way for against Picklesword, against that Vanitas list, I think we're going to be sitting really, really nicely for him.
The advantage is really in Bobby's court this game, though. Getting to go first means it's going to be impossible for Picklesword to tax him out of his level 1.
Yes.
And that is going to be the huge thing. I think what we're looking for going into this match, and I want both of your opinions on what these players want to see, but I think Bobby is looking to just get like a really good Rile off right away.
Yeah, so we talk about this influence game, right? Both players generally get to level 3 with fairly low influence. Due to the taxation, it's very difficult to regain that influence, especially since Picklesword will eventually play that sensor. In this situation, Isaac, I need to know, would you consider taking out Ensoul?
I would. It's funny, I wrote it on my notes earlier, is that Ensoul does not come up. I don't think it's going to come up at all, so I think we put in anything else that could come up, especially something like that, a null spell. I mean, a null spell is a little awkward, but if Picklesword is going for specifically the Beseech game plan, that could actually affect how Picklesword is actually able to play the game, how he affects him to actually attack and tax Bobby. So I think the null spell actually can come up when it comes to those Beseech the wins.
I think the annul spell is also very key later on in the game. We see how tight some of these life races get, and cards like Searing Rebuke, cards like Ember Crypt Burn can be annulled by that as well, negated by that as well. Looking at Bobby's hand, though, we have to take a look at this. We do see the Ensouls are still in there, so that's not going anywhere, but we see a Rile, we see a Resolute stand, and it looks like we have at least one Spectre to discard as well as a Creative Shock here.
Yeah,
is that a Fluffy?
It's a Fluffy or a Stalwart. Maybe the new Stalwart I can't quite tell here, but either way, there's a lot of options in Bobby's hand here. Obviously, getting a floating memory right off the bat is exactly what Bobby wants to see.
Yeah, so I believe that was a fluffy shopkeep. Yes, okay, so we are going to see the fluffy shopkeep.
Wow.
Interesting enough. So he's going to go for the Rile the Abyss and not go for the Creative Shock. He wants to play the fluffy shopkeep, get it out there, protect himself a little bit, but start getting that Crux Knight online, right? Having the Erendite and the Carmenon banished already is beneficial to his overall game plan, so I can understand the value of putting out fluffy shopkeep instead of going for the Creative Shock, discard into another floating memory, or to dig one card further, right?
Bobby's hand to me is, I mean, it's a stretch to say ideal because it does have something like Onslaught that I don't think is super strong here, but it is really close. It has a lot of cards you need, but this is a really good response from Picklesword with that Ember Crypt Burn to banish that floating memory, deal 2 damage to each champion. I think I still like Bobby's position here, but that is a hit.
Yeah, it's definitely a hit. I mean, obviously, this is why they're the taxes like deck, right? It's stealing those floating memory from graveyard, causing your materializations to cost more, and essentially, by using Ember Crypt Burn, even though it's going to deal damage to yourself on as Picklesword, but more importantly, it's going to take that floating memory away from Bobby and cause essentially another taxation, even though we are not level 3 here.
This is a dangerous game. What's he going to lose? Bobby loses the Dungeon Guide. That is a bit of a rough one. There are some cards that he would have much, much, much preferred to lose in this scenario, but you have to go for it. This is just a do you have the Ember Crypt Burn, and if you do, get a little bit punished, have to take a risky banish to take this level.
Oh, but I think we have is it another dungeon
guide?
Oh,
we have a second dungeon
Doesn't
guide.
even matter.
Oh, so, yeah, okay. I take back what I said. This is a pretty ideal opener.
Yeah, so we see the Pendragon in hand. We see another dungeon guide. We see a Resolute, and I think a Creative Shock. So we have options on Bobby's side here for sure. Hopefully we can find another Interceptor of some sort on the far left. I can't quite see what it is, but yeah, we're going to go to Picklesword with that Vanitas, and I think we might be seeing the exact Vanitas play we've seen all day.
Yeah, so we're going to see the dungeon guide up to level 2 here. Probably playing the Brisk Windtrotter. The 3/5 Dungeon Guide is pretty good. I think I like that a lot more than just playing the Red Hair. Red Hair being a 3/3 and available to remove from the board is not as effective in the long term. But when it comes to BobbyTortilla's hand, knowing that Picklesword is going to go up to level 1 Vanitas, then 2, then activate 3, I feel like going for like holding on to that Creative Shock for this turn is more effective because you know the sensor's not coming out, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we see Bobby thinking right here, that Resolute. Do I play Resolute on that Fluffy Shopkeep? We've seen him do it before. That keeps it alive for this whole turn. It means I'm not going to get taxed. Yes, it is essentially the same, right? Because you're losing a card from hand that doesn't replace itself, and you would lose a card additional when leveling up into level 2 Lorraine, if I got hit by that level 3 Vanitas. But in this case, might as well keep it alive because it could honestly end up being better in the long run, right? We see the DG on board. We see the Brisk Windtrotter on board, that DG representing as a 3-5. And I mean, honestly, Bobby's in a really good spot here.
Bobby had to make a really key choice here. The creative shock that he chose to play first is this gamble where if he doesn't find floating memory and then he still wants to play his Resolute Stand, he's gambling once again that entire hand, potentially losing something important when he goes to this level here, when he could have controlled a little bit more just by straight playing the Resolute Stand. But that creative shock had that potential, right, to find that floating memory and to give him another chance to try and accrue extra value when he goes to this level 2 here. But he had to do it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's a little scary, though. We saw that Dungeon Guide get banished on level 1 materialization. Now we might see the same thing here, right? We have that level 2, or sorry, that Dungeon Guide in memory here. And level 2 Lorraine, it's going to take 2 cards. It's going to take that 1 floating memory, and it's going to take 1 from memory here. And if we lose that Dungeon Guide, we might not be in a really great position going forward.
But I wonder if this is the risk. He said, if I don't find the float, or maybe I was planning to do this anyway, I'm just going to go for, okay, I was going to say maybe I'm just going to go for like a ring or something and try and get some cards back. But we have to go to this Blade Master. And I think Bobby is right now just praying, we're going to lose 2 cards. Please don't hit the Dungeon Guide.
Yeah, don't lose the Dungeon Guide, and preferably don't lose the Pendragon here.
So the Dungeon Guide is definitely the most important one. If he goes into the Dungeon Guide here, he can Dungeon Guide up to Lorraine Crux Knight, which will actually enable the damage gained from the 2 swords and banishment. He'll be able to take out that 3/5 Dungeon Guide, right?
Yeah.
Lorraine will come in having +2 on herself with the Sword of Seeking, and then +2 bonus from the Erendite and the Carmen on banishment. So that's what we're going to see here. The Dungeon Guide comes in. He's not going to have to use a Rending Flames just to remove that 3/5 DG.
Yeah, and that Rending Flames can be used later on for an actual really large attack, right? We saw Bobby, I mean, the power of Clarent, I feel like, is going to be the story here, right? The power of Clarent allows BobbyTortilla to put more cards into banishment, more specifically sword regalia cards into banishment, pumping up those attacks every single turn for the Lorraine on board. And honestly, that's just going to be really, really solid. Bobby finally being able to remove this large Dungeon Guide that's threatening quite a bit of damage and threatening to kill off the Fluffy Shopkeep every turn.
Bobby has lost exactly the perfect cards every time he's banished this game. It's been absolutely crazy. Now seeing him here losing the extra Rending Flames that he doesn't need, the Incapacitate that's way too expensive to play in this matchup, still holding that second Rending Flames. Bobby's able to clear that Dungeon Guide, get to draw the card, and it's just remarkable how different Game 2 is for Bobby in this case.
Yeah, it's really nice. He was able to draw a card off that on-kill, and removing the 3/5 body from the board is a lot of pressure. Ooh, we're going to see the ghosts of Pendragon.
We just
here.
see the scoop for Picklesword, recognizing this is a board I can't deal with. Bobby's so far ahead. It's 2-2. That Fluffy Shopkeep can't be removed. My influence is low, and we're just going to go to a Game 3 here already.
Yeah, this is crazy. One of the fastest finals we've seen, I think, in Ascent history. Absolutely insane going down to this, but each player up one. BobbyTortilla, the Ensoul player, the Lorraine player, playing the deck that Picklesword built this deck to beat. Picklesword, the creator of this deck that got 5 of the 7 team members into top 8. The final boss for BobbyTortilla going down to Game 3. This is intense.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, you know, the first time for different things. I feel like this is the first time we see first and second seed in the finals of an Ascent. I find it so rare that we see first and second seed. Normally it's like some random combination, like someone gets a good pairing, they match into it, but when there's this many of the same deck, that first seed spot feels like it matters so much.
Yeah, the first seed spot, and it's definitely going to matter here, all right? This gives Picklesword the availability to go first. I'm assuming he's choosing first here in this next match. We saw the strength of it against BobbyTortilla. I'm sure it's going to happen again. The ability to attack first with Vanitas is going to be crucial. We'll see if Bobby can play out of it, see if Bobby can, you know, play those Fluffy Shopkeeps, find those Fluffy Shopkeeps, play those Stalwarts, and, you know, save, apparently, his face from taking too much damage in that taxation every single turn. Yeah,
this is going to be like really the difference maker. That match against Burner, totally different when Bobby was the higher seed, right? But still, Game 2 against Burner, Bobby was able to take it. Going second is not counted out at all. This is not just a game determined by who goes first. It's a game, in this case, where advantage does go to the player going first, but that's not the entire story.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, and again, we talked about this. It's Grand Archive. It's so good. It has so many ways that you can play a deck, and so many ways you can outplay your opponents, so many ways you can penny pinch the numbers on what you need to do every single turn. And Bobby's been doing that all day with these Vanitas decks, learning them in and out, how to play against them, what's my best lines, and he's performing, amazing. This is his first Ascent Day 2, first Ascent top 8 as well in that case. And so he's definitely the underdog going into this top 8 here, and underdog going into this finals. But Picklesword hasn't won an Ascent yet either. So it's kind of not necessarily just an underdog for Bobby, but kind of a little bit for Pickle as well. He's the creator of this deck, creator of also the deck builder as well, shout out decks. So I'm sure he would love to try to get an Ascent win here as well.
Yeah, and so game 3 starting up here now. Picklesword is taking the first turn, so he will draw, and this is the game 3 final. It's the beginning of the finals for this decision. Who's going to win Ascent Boston, Picklesword or BobbyTortilla? And we're going to start out with a Creative Shock.
Pickle drew a lot of cards that draw and discard.
yeah, he has a lot of options of which cards he can play. He does have, it looks like a Spectre actually in hand on the far left there. And so it's interesting not to use the Rile the Abyss here with that Creative Shock. I wonder what, or instead of Creative Shock. So I wonder if there's a specific reason, and maybe that just comes down to testing what they've done in the past. And maybe we just want to use that Rile later on just to cycle and draw cards. Or it might not matter because Picklesword has one game plan.
Here's Bobby's hand. Let's take a look at what we see here. We see the Crux site. We do see a Creative Shock. That's nice to see. 2 Creative Shocks. Wait, is that 3?
Triple Creative
3
Shock,
creative.
triple Ghosts of Pendragon.
This is a weird hand, but it's
the
going to
Stalwart.
go.
Okay.
Stalwart. Okay, that helps a ton. Bobby has to try and draw out of this.
There's the triple Ghost of Pendragon, but we do see the fluffy Shopkeep.
The Shopkeep is nice. It's going to put a little bit more of a threat down here. Gets to pitch this the Stalwart Shieldmate. Now, we know that Picklesword really wants to level next turn. Not likely to go for the Sensor. Likely to leave that Stalwart there. We'll have to get through the Shopkeep as well now.
Yeah, this fluffy Shopkeep, we've seen it before. We've seen it again. Is hopefully going to prevent Picklesword from attacking into Bobby's champion here. But one issue that we've seen all day are those allies, but I don't remember seeing an ally in Picklesword's hand here. I don't remember seeing one of those 2-cost horses, and more importantly, I don't remember if I see. Oh, well, I might be speaking a little too soon here as Picklesword plays the Creative Shock and gets the Dailu, but I also don't remember seeing a Beseech the Winds or a Dungeon Guide in Picklesword's hand.
I don't remember seeing them either. How about you, Ones?
I do not recall seeing anything, but the top deck can change things, and it's going to be a top deck fluffy Shopkeep.
Oh,
Rile the
wow.
Abyss. Let's talk about that first turn again. I want to go back to it. Choosing to play the Creative Shock, discard the Undying Dreams. He had 2 Rile the Abyss and the Undying Dreams. So if he didn't draw into a Liminal Guide or another Undying Dreams, he had the ability to discard the Rile to draw an extra card and then play the Creative Shock afterwards. Do you feel like it was better for him to go for the Rile there, Isaac, or do you think that what he did was perfectly fine?
It's hard to say. Picklesword might have looked at his hands and go, oh, these are basically the same thing. I'm going to draw cards and I'm going to discard a card. But yeah, people forget. I think a lot of people do forget sometimes that, oh, Rile in itself is a Spectre card. It is a card I can use to cycle. That being said, though, Picklesword might be able to do that now, right? We might be seeing that exact thing happening here. We might be able just to use that Rile and use the other Rile to get rid of so we can dig a little deeper, find that Beseech, find that Dungeon Guide that we need so desperately here. But hey, we have a fluffy Shopkeep on the board here. I don't know if Picklesword's going to be able to get to level 3 fast enough before BobbyTortilla gets a bunch of value here.
I think Pickle was actually just hoping to draw more cards before playing the Rile to have higher chances of seeing Liminal Guide Inspectors to get like perfect start of 1 float, 1 Liminal Guide to get going. I think it was a very intentional decision to delay the Riles till he's seen a little bit more of his deck, right, to have the higher odds. But here, this is exactly what he's battling right now. He can't find this way to get to level 2.
So he does have the Embercrypt Burn. Embercrypt Burn will stifle Bobby's game plan. He's going to be able to remove that Stalwart Shieldmate so he does not get the floating memory. However, like you just said, Dan, the game plan for Picklesword is not there. He's not able to find the level 2 into level 3 lock, and that's going to be really significant because BobbyTortilla is going to go to level 1 here without being taxed, even though Picklesword got to go first.
This is the hugest moment of this entire match right now in Game 3, as Picklesword being unable to execute this we've seen it all weekend, this very consistent game plan, but he has to banish that Dungeon Guide at random to get that level. Absolutely crazy right now.
I mean, this is, we saw game 1 or game 2 here. I don't know if we have a backup dungeon guide though in this case. I mean, I'm going to look at Bobby's hand here and see if we have a couple other cards, but we do have a Creative Shock. We can dig a little bit, and that might be exactly what we're doing. But we still have the Fluffy Shopkeep online here. So if we can follow it up with a Stalwart, follow it up with another Fluffy Shopkeep that we just drew off the top here.
That's good.
It might not matter. We might have enough influence here and enough cards in hand, enough allies that we can play down onto board to protect the taxation from happening to Lorraine.
Interesting that Bobby continues to hold on to at least one of these Okay, never mind. Put the Ensoul down. Like Ensoul is a little bit of a stretch goal in the game, not something that you can easily reach. But he's going to go for this Creative Shock, try and find a little more action. Definitely going to try and dig and find that D-Guide. But that second Fluffy Shopkeep is going to mean going into that next turn with the ability to level tax-free still seems like a likely possibility.
Yep, the second Fluffy Shopkeep is going to be fantastic, right? 2 Interceptors, both of them being a 1/3 body, that 1 power, 3 life. That 3 life threshold is so important to mention in this matchup, right? We have things like the Stalwart Shieldmate, which would be a 2 life. But, Isaac, can you tell me why the 3 makes such a big difference when you're an Interceptor trying to protect your champion?
Yeah, 3 life in this game is so much more than 2. I mean, that sounds stupid, but in some ways. But honestly, the 3 life matters a lot. There's a lot of things that just deals 2 damage. A lot of things that just can ping off stuff for 2 damage. So having a 3 life Interceptor here is something that's really important, because if we play a dungeon guide on Picklesword's side, if we play just a single Brisk Windtrotter to put only 1 buff counter, because we're only level 1 currently, onto the dungeon guide, that's only going to swing for 2, and then we only have 3 to swing up with the Brisk Windtrotter. But this is an interesting play here. I think this is, I don't know how I feel about this in general, because I feel like going to level 2 might be what you have to go for to start getting through these Fluffy Shopkeeps that are on board.
Is Picklesword just adapting the game plan now, going like, I cannot do the taxation plan. I need to play a higher influence game with this deck. What does this deck play out at higher influences? If anybody knows, it's Picklesword.
Definitely, but it's going to be awkward because the allies that we have really get better once we're level 3. We have those Verucan Acolytes. We have those Dialus in hand. Eventually we'll have Red Hairs. And even that Brisk Windtrotter wants you to be level 2. So we're going to have a little bit of an awkward game plan. But yeah, Picklesword is trying to adapt, right? We have these 2 Interceptors on board. What can we do about them?
Yeah, so Picklesword chooses to just pass. Full grip, all the cards in hand available to him. Maybe seeing if he can bait BobbyTortilla into swinging a little bit of damage. We're going to see Clarent Reimagined here materialize for BobbyTortilla. So he has 4 swords in banishment. He's setting up for a fantastic Crux Knight turn. Losing that dungeon guide, though, may have changed Pickle's mindset and goal and approach to the rest of the game here, right? BobbyTortilla doesn't quite have the push yet, but it looks like the Creative Shock. So it's going to come out. What do we see here off the top?
Ensoul and Float.
I mean, Float's really nice here, right? We're going to get to go level 2, and even if Picklesword plays an ally, we can actually kill it off. But yeah, Picklesword playing Rile, getting uses out of these Riles he's had in his hand since turn 1 here, and hopefully digging a little deeper so that way we can actually go into our level 2. That Liminal Guide,
it's not bad.
Might be a game changer to put an ally on board.
I think what we're seeing here is both players going, okay, we are going deep in influence, playing a deep influence game. Bobby, instead of choosing to level, is choosing to get that Clarent out. What that is doing right now is, 1, preserving influence for Bobby a little bit. 2, setting up a way to protect those Fluffy Shopkeeps from non-combat damage, which is another way to make sure they don't get cleared off the board. And 3 is also giving the opportunity to hold off on that level 2 Lorraine for when Picklesword does develop a board and can get a Flame Sweep for huge influence.
So there's a couple things in this turn that are really, really impactful. So Liminal Guide, obviously a great body to have on the board, does let you draw a card from its effect, but Picklesword going to level 2 indicates to Bobby that he is not going to be materializing the Censor. Should he go Beseech the Winds for a Censor, it would be a really strange influence shift, because it does turn off the 2 floating memory from Bobby, but it also means that Picklesword will not be able to fully clear these Fluffy Shopkeeps, and it'll be tougher for him to get in with that champion hit onto Lorraine.
Yeah, this is I love what Pickle's doing, though. I mean, he's trying to build up a board. He recognizes I need to get multiple allies on the board here, clear these Fluffy Shopkeeps, give me the availability to start taxing my opponent, because honestly, and I think that's what we're seeing here, honestly. We're seeing probably I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Dilute follow-up, or perhaps an Embercrypt burn here. We have the Red Hair even in hand here, so we could put those down, go to level 3 here, kill off the Fluffy Shopkeep. Now, this Embercrypt burn doesn't deal damage to allies. It can only deal damage to the champion. So it's not going to do anything in terms of helping kill off that fluffy shopkeep. But we still have 3 cards in hand from Picklesword to be able to have the ability to play an ally, and this Ember Crypt Burn is going to give 1 more attack to the Vanitas, allowing it to get through like something like a Resolute stand here.
Yeah, we have that activation now of the Vanitas. Just the 1 damage Wind Trotter on board still, though. Picklesword would need to follow it up with that red hair to get rid of the fluffy shopkeep. But Picklesword is certainly setting up at this point to be able to get a taxation pulled off on Bobby when he still hasn't gone for that level 2 Lorraine. But I think at this point, Bobby's influence is built enough where that Flame Sweep can come down.
So he actually chose to swing the Vanitas Dominus Rex into the fluffy shopkeep to remove it from the field. Maybe he was just face-checking the Resolute stand, didn't want to try to force the push other way.
Yeah, and I think, though, in Picklesword's hand, he has a Stifling Trap. So he's holding up the Stifling Trap just in case BobbyTortilla tries to go into the DG game plan here. If he is able to find one and go, we're going to level 2 here. So if Bobby has finds one off the top here, which Picklesword doesn't know he doesn't have one here, right? He might be thinking, okay, he's just going to level 2 here and then going to go for that dungeon guide, but he doesn't have one. And so Picklesword making sure he can keep BobbyTortilla at a low level here for as long as he can.
So Picklesword thinking he's maybe Bobby's been playing around the Stifling Trap this whole game, holding on, sandbagging that dungeon guy, but instead Bobby just going for this Flame Sweep. On the turn, he levels to Lorraine level 2 with that +2 and on-kill bonus. That's going to give him the opportunity to influence up 2 more, drawing 2 cards, defeating those 2 allies, and then dealing some extra damage to Vanny.
Yeah, so it's going to be just 1 because of the Ephemerate.
The Ephemeral, yeah,
so
you're right.
Because Liminal Guide is ephemeral, it will go to Banishment. It does not trigger the on-kill because it doesn't go to the graveyard.
Yep, that's right.
But still, 1 card is fantastic in this case. Being able to clear the Liminal Guide off the board is much more impactful than actually drawing 1 card there, right? It is a 3/5 body. It represents it represents a lot of damage every single turn. That's basically a Delu with an extra life, right? That's really tough to remove from the field.
Yeah, I think that was really good, really awesome. And also, something that's important about this Flame Sweep is that it does cost 4. And that 4 cost actually matters in this case because of the taxation from the Vanitas, making the level 3 cost 4. So not only does that Flame Sweep clear board get an influence back because we get that on-kill effect from Lorraine, but those 4 having being down in memory allows us to go to level 3. And when we're level 3, we have right now 4 attack swings over the next couple turns here.
Bobby is just holding on to these Ghosts of Pendragon, right? That's the whole idea. We're going to get to level 3 very safely next turn. Even though we're going to take this hit from Vanny, we're going to get to level 3, and then we can start doing all of the Crux is fine shenanigans that everybody loves about Lorraine.
Yeah, I think this is really good. If we see Picklesword just double-checking the graveyard here, how many fire do you have in there? How much, am I going to die for a rending on my next turn? And we definitely have enough fire in the graveyard to activate a rending, get a double buff bonus there.
We have drawn and discarded a lot of cards, so there's plenty of fire cards sitting in there.
Yes, very awesome. I mean, Picklesword, very smart with this Tariff Ring on board, making sure that, hey, I could die real soon here if I'm not careful, so let's play around it. Let's try to figure out what I need to do next to try to come back into this game because Bobby, had such a very good start at the beginning of this game.
Bobby needs to read the Tariff Ring really quickly. Just going to check what kind of, attack declarations it affects.
Maybe looking for the timing on it. Wanted to double check that it's the beginning of Recollection only.
Right.
So in response to Materialization, he does have the ability to play something like a Reduce to Ash, targeting the Tariff Ring, which again we talked about is why he has 4, right? He has more options to deal with different Regalia, not just Censor, but being able to deal. And there it is. There's the Reduce to Ash in response to Materialization to take out the Tariff Ring. Picklesword is not going to be able to use this to protect himself. So if BobbyTortilla has a Rending Flames, he can find lethal this turn.
This is crazy. If he finds lethal this turn off a Rending off the top here, we have a Crux. Oh my goodness! He draws the Rending Flames for turn here. Now this Rending Flames, when we represent, we got 3 from the Rending Flames, 4 from the Swords and Banishment, and 1 from the Sword just from Champion here. So we're looking at 8 damage, double it up, that's 16 damage. That is enough for lethal. Does Picklesword have any way to prevent this damage from coming through? We're going to see here quickly. We're going to banish those 3 fire cards. I mean, something as simple as a Searing Rebuke would be crucial here.
And that's it. He calls it. BobbyTortilla taking the grand finals against Picklesword. Lorraine beating the Vanitas deck, the boogeyman deck of the entire what seems like tournament here. What a fantastic victory for BobbyTortilla. His first time making it this far in his Ascent, making it to the top 8, and now winning his place at the Gauntlet for Ascent or for Worlds 2026 in Singapore.
Yes, that's so cool for Bobby. The first Gauntlet winner from an Ascent. I mean, this is crazy. You can see how happy the crowd is. You can see how happy his fans are for beating this Vanitas deck that was beating down all these level 3 decks throughout the entire tournament. Congrats to Bobby here.
BobbyTortilla with that Rending Flames off the top. That was absolutely crazy, but that's such a surgical play of that reduce to ash on that Tariff Ring. Just knew what his out was, found the out, managed to deal enough damage, and this was on the draw. Again, this was Picklesword as the top seed. Absolutely crazy. The crowd is going wild over the People's Champion, BobbyTortilla, your Ascent Boston champion.
Yeah, the Ascent Boston champion, the MVP, the underdog of this tournament, and another MVP, that Fluffy Shopkeep, the entire game, keeping him at a good influence because it was protecting his champion from that taxation from Vanitas, Dominus Rex. Congrats to Bobby. I mean, just expertly played by Picklesword too, trying to adapt to his game plan, right? Double Fluffy Shopkeep was on board. What do I do? How do I get past it? And unfortunately, it just wasn't enough, but Bobby, knowing his lines, knowing how to play, adapting throughout the tournament, never seeing this deck from at all. No one here knew it, but he was able to adapt to his game plan, knowing what he needs to do, getting that win. Congrats to him.
This is nothing more than an anime protagonist moment. There's no other way to describe this. Bobby losing the first round of this deck, then going on to beat it 4 more times throughout the event, ultimately culminating in the final boss, the creator of the deck. But that said, this team went hard. Chess Club with this Fire Vanitas deck caught everybody off guard. It only took a special person with the right cards, the right play, the right luck to be able to take it down. But absolutely phenomenal job from all of these players here. Incredible event that we had at Ascent Boston this weekend, Isaac.
Yes, this was an amazing event. Amazing players. We've seen so many good players, and we see everyone so happy. His friends, his locals, everyone here. Really proud of him. This is amazing to see. I mean, this is what it should be like when you win an Ascent, right? This is such a cool moment for him.
Would Henke just run in and grab? What on earth just happened? Henke the go running in there, but absolutely, yeah. Everybody's so excited for that anime protagonist moment. Absolutely crazy. We're going to head back right now. The camera's actually following us through. Head a bit to the backstage, a peek behind the curtain for the folks at home. But here, we're going to be tossing it over real shortly to Once in Love. Going to do this interview with the one and only Ascent Boston champion, BobbyTortilla. Isaac, what do you think he's going to say?
I think he's pretty happy about this. I think actually, I believe he has a flight to catch shortly here. So I think he's pretty happy about it, and we're going to hear him talk about it right here very shortly with Once Love. So we'll hit it on over to them and see what they have to say.
Hello, I am joined here with the winner of Ascent Boston. How does it feel to beat the deck that felt like the boogeyman?
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. It's been a crazy 2 days, and it just feels amazing. I can't describe the feeling.
Yeah, it must be amazing. You know, we looked at your previous stats. You just came out of nowhere.
Yep.
You came out of nowhere and just appeared and took everyone by storm. For lack of a better way to say it, you swept the whole field. You playing Crux Knight Lorraine, you managed to get there. Didn't even quite need your on-souls in most of these games. Looking back at your whole event, how did you feel bringing this deck in before you started and now?
After doing some testing here, it felt pretty good into testing. I thought it was well suited into what the other kind of metas have been looking at from the tournaments around the area. I did not expect to see the Vanitas list at all. I think that just having the defensive options for that list paid off tremendously. I think it was a nice fall into that, and it worked out.
Yeah, it really did. There's a couple unique things in your list that I really liked. I really liked that you ran the 4 reduced to ash. You really went for the consistency on that. Yeah. Outside of Sensor, was there anything else? Obviously, maybe the Tariff Ring was a big factor for you.
Yeah. Surprisingly, reduce usually finds a target every game. I was playing 3-up for a long time. I just find that having the Sensor on and not being able to find the reduce was really impacting my play. If it's not, it's hitting, a dagger or impact hammer. So there's always something that it'll hit. Otherwise, I'm just throwing it away. So the 4 reduce, the consistency go for it. It's done. All right.
Can you just explain that again?
Yep. Yeah, so the 4 of reduced really felt great for consistency. Even if it's not hitting the sensor, which is that's what it's there for. Having the ability to hit impact hammers, daggers, that sort of thing, it always finds a target somewhere. So it's a really versatile card. If not, just toss it away, right? There's a lot of filter on the deck.
Yeah, and a lot of filter you had. So looking at, I guess, the other things in your deck, why the 2 Cruxites? I know a lot of people have been kind of foregoing the Cruxites in recent times. Why did you feel like those Cruxites were important in your deck?
I wanted to have additional resources if, Ensoul gets incapped, you bring back a Pendragon, or at worst, just kind of filter. That's what it's just the 2 of, not committing too many deck slots for it, just making sure that I have something there if I need it. It hit a couple times this weekend, but not too much. It's just there as kind of like a flex spot. Yeah.
So your deck did great. You did great. Congratulations again. How does it feel knowing that you have won the very first gauntlet spot from an Ascent?
Absolutely crazy. I'm looking forward to it. I've never been to Singapore, so I'm ready. It sounds great.
Yeah, well, Singapore is fantastic. The players there are very skilled. Aplex Players Guild, those guys are good. So it'll be really exciting to see you make it through that journey there. Are there any other Ascents you're planning to go to this year?
I wasn't, but maybe I should start looking. Who knows? We'll see. Time will tell.
Time will tell. So I have another question for you, and I like to ask this to all my interviewers, especially those who do really well on a deck. Is this your favorite deck, or is this just the deck that you like playing right now?
So I kind of talked about it a little bit last round. I was a big-time Park Ranger player, a lot of regional events, so playing Diana Unique Allies for a while. I think kind of coming into the Genbu era, it wasn't really well suited to play there, so I've kind of swapped out. I played a couple Dangs. I actually went to Umbro Diana at one point of this season, and I just didn't feel like it could make the distance. So swapping to Ensoul was kind of a last minute in the last two weeks kind of training there, and so I'm glad I did. So no, not really. This is I played it probably back FTC era. Ensoul played around it there, and finally just coming back around to it now.
Yeah. So looking at that match, you were a lower seed, so you didn't get to choose first or second, but you managed to win 2-0, right? That's huge.
It is huge. Going second in this matchup is extremely tough. If Vanitas can get to 3 and lock you at 1, I think you saw the match having to go to Lorraine 1 and paying an additional 1 for the sword. 3 is brutal. So having that going first and be able to defend a fluffy shopkeep is fantastic.
Yeah, the Resolute stands really being in your favor there.
Yes.
The last game, though, you had some crazy top decks. We were talking about it on stream. We're like, oh, the Reduced to Ash comes out, so the Terrafring is there.
Yep.
He's going to play that kind of setup. And then top deck the Rending, and that's lethal right there. When you drew that Rending Flames, can you explain to me the feelings that you had in that moment?
Over the moon. It was crazy to find the one piece you needed. I was thinking I'm going to play this for the long game. I've got the Ghost in hand. I'm going to make some incremental value plays and make it out. But seeing the Rending Flames, knowing that this is just going to end the game, crazy.
Yeah, absolutely crazy it is. Again, congratulations on winning Ascent Boston. Guys, this is the winner here. Please, everyone give a round of applause to him. You're wonderful. Your gameplay was great, and it was a wonderful story to see you top over all of these Vanitas. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today here. We will be back in 20 minutes with the closing ceremony, and we'll see you guys soon.